Hi there, Cinema Ranger. I thought I would use this next video to spend a little bit of time talking about what it is that I thought, in general, makes a film great. Before I start exploring my various opinions and analyses of various films, it seems like it'd be a good idea for me to set in stone what it is I view to be the components of a truly great film. One of the films that quickly jumps to mind would be something like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. In that story, we go along with Joel as he tries to erase his memories of Clementine. And what I think is very interesting is the filmmakers made the choice to show the memory erasure process happening backwards. And so what happens is we actually start at the end of their relationship and move our way so that by the end of the film, we come to the part where Joel and Clementine have first gotten together. And of course, it's very sweet and beautiful and touching and it feels fresh, that springtime love. And in a way, the audience is challenged to remember that there was also great dysfunction in their relationship. So just like Joel, whose memory is being slowly eaten away by this process of memory erasure or just life in general, the audience is also tasked with sort of digging deep into their own memory of the film. Another good example of this idea of the formal components of a film or the theme sort of merging into one being would be something like Fargo. In that film we have Margie, the sheriff, who is kind of naively trusting of so many of the stories that she hears as she begins to investigate this odd crime happening outside of her town. Over and over again she's lied to, and eventually she begins to question these stories that she's being told, these tall tales. What I think is so wonderful about that film is at the very beginning of the movie we're given a disclaimer that this is based on real events, that the names have been changed to protect the identities, but everything we see is faithful to some reality that in fact is a complete lie. And so the audience has to learn to be just as skeptical of things they're told, of the urban legends and myths, as Margie, the protagonist, has to learn in her journey. So that would be, I guess, the first thing I'm looking for is, does the journey of the character encourage the audience, or does the structure of the film encourage the audience to go through the same experiences themselves? Of course, another, in some ways, easier component to draw on is to simply ask oneself did the film excel, or did the film flawlessly execute one area of its filmmaking, or maybe multiple areas of its filmmaking? A good example of a film that I think flawlessly executes storytelling, for example, would be Get Out. Get Out is a perfect example of using three-act structure. Every beat is exactly where it needs to be, and it plays the way three-act structure film should play out. And it is sort of an exact model of what an ideal three-act structure film looks like. And so if you know three-act structure, I don't have time to go into it today, but you really break that film down, you can see just how pristinely it uses this model to tell its narrative. Another film that I think we could point to as being a sort of a flawless example of a particular area of cinema would be Days of Heaven. You know, the cinematography in that is achingly beautiful. Every shot, like this perfect sunset shot, these fields of people standing around looking somewhat lost and also hopeful at the same time. The constant sense of distance between people and characters and objects, reinforcing these themes that Malick is exploring, this idea that we are constantly lost, constantly disassociated, constantly seeking to connect with something that's been almost impossible to fully connect to. The final quality that I would often look for in judging a great film, in some ways maybe the easiest one, is simply the question of, does the film resonate on a level of truth? Do its themes and ideas speak to reality as we know it and inform us about the world we live in? I mean, a really obvious example of this might be Do the Right Thing, which was true in 1989, would have been true in 1959, and to a horrific extent is still true in 2019. I mean, it's sort of stunning when you watch this film and you see an exploration of police brutality, and it was made in 1989, and you're thinking to yourself, has anything really changed? So that's a devastating kind of film in that regard. A more recent example of what I would think to be a film that speaks to truth, maybe not on a social level, but more on an emotional level, might be something like The Favorite, where the horrific realities of human nature are kind of laid bare in this sort of nasty exploration of human resentment, jealousy, and ambition, and the idea that sometimes we get something in our head and we sort of pursue it despite the fact that in achieving our goal we have effectively destroyed ourselves and ruined something that was good. That is a obviously very dark film, but I think it speaks truth to human impulse and the way that human impulse can be very, very destructive. I guess what I'm saying, maybe more than anything else, is I need a film that has layers. Layers that go beyond just, you know, an interesting plot, but that there's something underneath, and I can keep digging and digging and digging and finding stuff, so that even if there are imperfections on the surface, deep beneath that is something resonant and rich and moving. I'm the Cinema Ranger. Hope our paths cross someday.